It's Jan Beta, and I am, as you probably know if you saw the last video, I'm in the middle of recreating this Amiga 500 setup that was my father's at this point and later became my own in the early 1990s. Last episode I tried fixing this Commodore 1084 monitor, which was kind of a fail, but I didn't give up on it yet. There were a lot of very helpful comments that I need to go through, and there also was a very helpful email from Mr. T Guru, who is a collector of Commodore monitors, and he basically suggested a whole number of things. I won't have time to do this in time for Christmas because I have to finish this series, or so it's the plan, for Christmas. So that this is kind of a Christmas special thing. I am going to continue work on this after Christmas. Probably I might sneak in some hours on this in between, but I won't promise that I get this working by Christmas. That's what I was going to say. On the other hand, I have this pile here, which is, as you can probably see, this is an A1010 external disk drive for the Amiga, and this is exactly the disk drive you've seen in the picture from 1988. It is considerably yellowed since then, but I'm going to do a restoration on this in another video. This video is going to be about this, which is the Amiga 500 you've seen in the picture actually, which was my father's and now it's mine ever since 1991 or 2 or something like that. And today is going to be, first of all, trying out if this still works at all. Probably going to take a look inside and inspect this and unbox this again because it's been quite some time since I looked into this box. I hope to have this restored to the state it was in when the picture was taken in 1988, which was like 30 years ago. Wow. So here it is. I don't even know if this is the original box my Amiga was in, but I think so. It has the sticker here that says jetzt mit Diskette erste Schritte. This is like a first steps and demo set of discs that was in there. With it, and I think I still have those discs. I am going to spare that for the Christmas episode, I think, checking out the discs, but this is my Amiga 500 in here, and I am going to unbox this. Unfortunately, this box opens on this side, so I have to turn it around, which will make it look weird, but just going to do that. So these are, by the way, these are the German, or I think these are the European box designs for the Commodores, which are pretty bland compared to the rainbow-colored American designs. And here we are! Whew. And this is actually my action replay that's still in here, which is like an expansion cartridge, which I used quite a lot to rip like sounds and graphics, and this has a freezer in it where you could just copy the contents of the memory, so you could aka make backups of your games. So this is the manual for a power pack that I didn't have. This was I think the family bought another Amiga 500 for my mother to use as a working computer basically. This was the power pack that came with that. That was a later model, I believe. Pack of backup discs, I think, that my father made at some point. Yeah, it's like Workbench 2.04. That doesn't belong to the computer. To this computer. But this is pretty emotional, actually, so... Let's see what we have in this compartment here. There's the original, very yellow power supply. This is like the 2.5 ampere heavy linear transformer one. I'm going to take care of that in a separate video. And also this is the original mouse this came with, and it just says Amiga. It has this style connector. This is the 1987 mouse that this particular Amiga came with. And it all is pretty yellow. So okay, let's take a look at the machine, shall we? So here we are. This is my old Amiga 500 and it's pretty filthy. I think most of the filth came from later years when it wasn't mine anymore, or when it still was mine, but my sister used it and her boyfriend used it a lot. I think they had it set up as a gaming console kind of thing in their house. So yeah, and it is very yellowed over the years, as these things tend to do. Interestingly, this part is a lot more yellowed than the other part, so probably it was there was a window on the right side or something like that. But otherwise, all the keys are there. Doesn't look very bad. Oh, this feels pretty familiar. So and I know that this was the exact Amiga I used because somebody, I'm not even sure now if it was my father or if I did it myself, just painted the outline of the Amiga logo red with a red marker. So what I'm going to do today is first of all have a look inside and see if there's anything suspicious in here before I will try to power this on and see if it still works basically. And then I'm going to take care of the case and probably put some new capacitors in it. And as you can see, this is the old, where this is embossed into the plastic, the old model of the case. This Commodore logo is embossed into the plastic, and as opposed to the stickers that later versions had. So this is an early, I believe this is a 1987 model. It has to be because my father had it since 1987, I think. We're going to see that once we have a look at the motherboard and the date codes on the chips. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's open this up and see what's inside. My father wrote that. That's my father's handwriting. So I was wondering while I was taking this apart that the screws in the back were different screws from the original screws. They were slightly. Usually you have all the same screws in the Amigas. These are pretty different. So he labeled these because later on he had an Amiga 2000 and he had another Amiga 500 and he had an Amiga 500 that he put into another third-party case kind of thing, like a desktop conversion kit that he used. So he went through quite a lot of Amigas. So I think he just labeled stuff to be safe. So the date code, the first date code that I see is on this controller, custom MOS controller chip on the keyboard PCB, is 30th week of 87, and that actually is between the 20th and probably the 24th of July 1987. And this chip was made, which means that it was pretty early in the game, like half a year after the Amiga 500 and 2000 were introduced in January 1987. And that's, I know my father got this in 1987, so that makes sense. Probably he got it in summer, and I got my Commodore 64 for Christmas that same year. So my father obviously has been in here a number of times, probably. So the keyboard just comes out here. There's a lot of dust in there. And I'm also removing the shielding here, it's pretty shiny. I've seen much worse, given the sorry state that this was in from the outside. It's not bad. Not bad at all. And I know for a fact that he, at least my father replaced the Kickstart ROM in here. Because this machine came with Kickstart 1.2 and he upgraded it to 1.3. Which was like a kind of like a bug fix thing, I think, and it added like hard disk capabilities and stuff like that. So it was a very useful upgrade, Kickstart upgrade. Done a couple of repair videos on Amigas where I pointed this out. There are these little latches that grab onto the shield that you have to bend out of the way, so you can lift it up. They are all around the perimeter, basically. And there are screws, so this is not that trivial to remove. So here we are. Looking pretty good, apart from the dust, but that's kind of normal, I think. Oh, what immediately catches my eye on this board is that the CAAs are not socketed. All the other main ICs are socketed. The CAAs, which are in these machines, are one of the most frequent fault. They are not socketed at all, so that's pretty strange, I guess. So I want to remove the drive too. There's a screw here. And I think there's a screw on the bottom that just screws through the plastic on this little standoff here. I think on the other side, maybe there's a screw on the other side too, to show. Yeah, there's two screws actually, there and there. These are the screws for the drive. So there you have it, written in gold. There's a little tape here, I don't know why. This is the Rev 5 board. Rock Lobster was the code name for the project. B-52 Rock Lobster. Which is actually Rock Lobster is a song by the B-52s. Which makes sense. And here's some free 1980s or probably 90s fluff in here. And by the way, this RAM expansion was in there, which is the Commodore A501 in the revision 5, which is an exact match to this motherboard. Actually, in production, the board was like square shaped, and they just cut these boards out and sold them separately. I did remove the battery. This came in a steel cage. And it had like a leaky battery on there that I removed. Yeah, so because the battery leakage would have damaged the board. There's a bit of corrosion going on here, but it's not that bad. This is probably still going to work. This clock part, there's some corrosion going on, but usually the memory expansion still works on these, even though the clock part is damaged. I don't really need the clock part, but I might refurb this too in another video. Another part of this series, maybe. So for now I'm just gonna remove the board from the case altogether, so we can clean that and test the board. And clean the case separately, because I don't want this mess around the board anywhere. So I just want to wipe away some dust here. So now that it's reasonably clean, I reseated the ICs a bit. This was probably not even necessary. There are no bulging caps or roasted components to be seen via this visual inspection. So what I'm going to do is to try to connect this to a known good power supply that I was using for my Amiga 1200 for ages. Which is, I don't really trust the power supply this came with. I am going to use my trusted power supply on this at first, and I'm going to connect it to a monitor and connect the keyboard back up and see if it still works. So here it goes. My original Amiga 500 in its original state, minus the case in this case, powering up. Let's see what it does. Okay. And it seems to absolutely work, no problem at all. Well done, Commodore! And of course, this is one of the red and green LEDs, red being the power LED, versions, because the earlier versions were all red and green power LEDs, which is my favorite in all Amigas, maybe because I had this as a kid. Okay, let's try and load the disk, shall we? Maybe the drive. Okay, there we are. This thing actually seems to work just fine. Amazing. This is amazing. This thing got some use and abuse over the years and it just works. So there's probably no repairs needed whatsoever. So I'm just going to clean it up and replace the capacitors, which obviously isn't even necessary, but I want to refurbish this and keep it for a long time, hopefully. So yeah. Nice! So I'm just going to do some restoration work on this. No repair work needed at all, seemingly. So I am going to take this apart again, the test setup here, and replace the capacitors on the board. And for that purpose we of course have to remove the bottom shielding. And to remove that, we have to remove the two screws on this DB23, which is the connector for the graphics video output. It's one of these. No idea what these are called in English. It's like an hex thingo. But not an Allen key, but the other way around. So it's like a hollow Allen key. So there we are. So now I should be able to lift the whole board out of the RF shielding there. And there's a plastic sheet. And that's what's held in place with the little tapes there. I'm just going to remove the tape. And this reveals the beautiful golden backside of the board. Yeah, what I'm going to do is to replace the electrolytic capacitors on here. And I'm doing it one by one so I don't get confused regarding the specifications of the capacitors. I am going to remove the tape here. It's like a bit annoying to me. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to desolder the capacitors and replace them with new ones, good brand ones. You want to always use the same capacitance, the exact same capacitance, and you can go a bit higher on the voltage, but you don't want to use lower voltages to be safe that the circuitry will not damage the capacitors right away. So I'm just going to replace them with, I think I primarily have Panasonic caps. For these I think I have like Nippon Chemicon stuff or Nichicon, I don't remember. But like good brand capacitors that are rated for 105 degrees Celsius, which makes them last even longer. And yeah, just regular caps, no low ESR stuff or anything on this board. It's pretty old school, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to do a little montage because you've seen me recapping stuff before, and I just gave you the nuts and bolts of it. Ta-da! All new capacitors. Let's see if this still works. Fingers crossed. Okay, test run of the freshly recapped board. I don't even know if it will start up without the keyboard. I don't think so, but we'll see. Ah, yes it does. Just takes a while, I think. It's looking for the drive, I suppose. Yep, and it still starts up. That's good. See if any of the caps get hot or anything. So that worked for a change. But it wasn't broken anyway, so that was kind of cheating. But I don't know if you realized that, but in the last couple of videos I always messed something up, or I didn't manage to repair something. So this is pretty nice for a change. So now that I'm sure the electronics still work, let's take care of this rather filthy and yellowed case. Yeah, I want to clean this and also retrobrite the case. So, to the bathroom! And of course I want to take care of the keyboard too, so I'm just going to use my keycap puller to pull all the keycaps and then clean them and retrobrite them as well, especially these ones. So let's get it on. This part here I'm just gonna leave assembled, and I think I'm just gonna dust it off. Now I'm also going to do some serious swiping with alcohol and window cleaner, I think. So that at least ought to kill some of the bacteria on there. On the little button thing from the disk drive, I just pulled it off, like so, and I'm going to put it with the keycaps because it's equally as dirty and yellow. So the keys will just get some soapy water and soak in there for a while. Just using my trusted Sillet Bang in large doses. I'm using warm water here. So now I'm just going to let that sit here for a while so it can soak a bit, and then I'm going to brush each individual key, and use some window cleaner and ultimately some alcohol on it to get rid of all the fat residue that's on there or any other stains. For the case parts I'm using a brush and a cloth, some window cleaner, and this stuff, which is for mopping floors really. Somebody, because it's missing one of these feet, one just came off, put these felt pads on there. I'm going to remove those and put new rubber feet on it. Just going to remove the rubber feet as well and put new proper rubber feet on there. And I'm using lighter fluid to clean off the glue residue from these felt pads that are pretty stubborn. I think I'm also going to use a plectrum, which usually works pretty well, as you can see, for getting rid of these plastic stuffs. These are made of nylon, so they are pretty sturdy. So just going to remove all the glue residue, even the glue residue from the original rubber feet has to go, obviously. But that's not going to be a big problem with some alcohol and some lighter fluid. As for these remnants of the warranty seal, I think they should go, because yeah, I got it like this back in the day, but it doesn't look great. So I'm just going to try to remove that too. There we go. So now we're left with pretty much the bare plastic parts of the Amiga case, so let's go retrobrite some. So for retrobrighting I am going to use my usual cream peroxide, which is this stuff here, that works pretty well. I'm going to put it on the pieces with a paintbrush and then cover them in this cling wrap that I already put on here. Yeah, and then I'm going to put it into this box that I lined with aluminum foil or aluminium, depending on where you are. And I am going to put my grow light that I used before on top there, let it run for half an hour, then go in and massage the cream around and change the position of the pieces. Then let it go for another half an hour, and usually after a couple of hours the yellowing goes away gradually, hopefully. So this is pretty important to me because it's such a personal item this time. So I hope this works. That's why I'm not experimenting with this at the moment. I'm using the method I used before and that worked every time. So let's just do that. Just going to put this on here and then, yeah, that should be enough. The cling wrap is for preventing it from drying out, really. As opposed to the Amiga 1200, the 500s are not white, they are like more beige. I mean, the 1200 isn't fully white, but it's a lot brighter. So I now have it in my box here and I'm going to use it. So just folding this and then I'm going to place the grow light thing on top there. Like so. Okay. I nearly forgot about the keys. I'm using a toothbrush and a lot of patience and my fingers to get rid of the dirt. But soaking them really did a lot already, so not much dirt left. And then of course I'm going to rinse them thoroughly and rinse them again with some alcohol, some window cleaner, so that they are absolutely fat free and hopefully ready for retrobrighting. So the keys are all nicely washed and brushed, and I'm going to use liquid peroxide for the keys, I guess. I have a new bottle of liquid peroxide, which is the same brand as the stuff I use as a cream. I'm just going to put that in there and hope for the best. And I think that heat is more important for the peroxide, the liquid stuff, than the actual light is. You don't want to touch it with your fingers really, because it burns. It's not gonna seriously hurt you, but be careful. So I hope this works. This is like the most careful method I'm aware of. I'm just gonna put it into the box too. So here's what I do every half an hour or so. I open this, I take away the grow light, and I'm opening this, taking out the pieces, and then gently massaging the cream around so I don't get streaking, hopefully, and hope for the best. I just put the keys in there, so there's not much need to stir them around. They just started, and they're probably going to take longer than the rest, so I'm just going to do that again and again and again. So, it's been 5 or maybe 6 hours. Didn't keep track really. So let's see. And I've always, every half an hour, I came in and massaged it around. And as you can see, the yellowing is nearly completely gone. I don't know if you can see it that well on camera. I'm going to show you in a second. The keys need some extra treatment. I can still see some yellow stuff there. But the case looks nicely beige, as it's supposed to be the original color. Cool. So let's unwrap it, and I'm going to use the shower to clean off the peroxide. For the keys, I'm reusing this smaller box that has like bubble wrap, reflective bubble wrap on its inside, so we can use that to keep the heat in, which is, I think, the most significant factor in the retrobrighting process. If you submerge the keys in this solution here. So I think I'm just gonna submerge them all nicely, and then put the grow light on top there, which just fits and heats up the inside. And then we're going to see after some time. So here we are after about 5 hours. Where I came in and every half hour also stirred it and took it out of the box here, a little container, and the yellowing should be almost completely gone now. Water, the peroxide is pretty hot. It's like, I think it's between 50 and 60 degrees. Shouldn't measure that actually. So that wasn't that far off. It's like 55.6 degrees. With these ABS plastics you can go up to nearly 70 degrees until it starts melting. So between 50 and 60 degrees is usually fine, and I found that this my grow light heats this particular box up to around 60 degrees maximum, so that's absolutely fine for most plastics and safe. So yeah, let's see what this looks like now. I think they're good. Can't really see a gradient anymore, which is a good indication. They're definitely finished. So let's call that a wrap. While we wait for the keys and the case to dry, let me take care of this drive really quick. Let's remove the cables here. Basically, what I want to do is to remove this top metal shield, which is, I guess it's an RF shield. It is attached with this adhesive, this like metal adhesive tape on both sides, and then it's just clipped in on the back. So we have to remove the adhesive tape. I usually just cut it open. I want to clean the heads and lubricate the rails the heads move on, because that's just reasonable maintenance. In case these drives don't work, often what goes wrong is either the heads are misaligned or it's one of these small capacitors on here. I think it's 22 microfarad and a 1 microfarad one. These three are the same, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 22 microfarad, 16 volts, and this is like a 1 microfarad one. And they do fail sometimes, so if you have some weird behavior from these drives, these are suspects. They are okay in this case, so I'm just leaving them in for now. So let me cut this open, or let me see if I can remove it and then reattach it maybe. No, that's not going to be possible, it's pretty brittle. Just cutting this. So we should now be able to lift this off. Okay, there we go. I am going to remove some of the dust that's in there, so much for sure. I could remove the whole black thing here, but I'm just going to clean these parts. Basically all moving parts, because this, if you insert a disc, this basically sits down in these notches here, and yeah, there's a little silicone lubrication there normally, I think. So I'm just going to replace that, and I'm also going to, there's a rail underneath there that I can probably reach. Yeah, I can, with the Q-tip. And I'm also going to clean the heads, which are under this copper thing. Don't know if you can see them really good. There are two heads in this case because it's a double-sided drive. Just using this silicone grease, just a little bit on the rails there. I also want to apply some grease to all the moving parts, like here, where the head is moving back and forth, and here. Now for cleaning the heads, I'm just using a Q-tip, cotton swab, whatever you want to call it. Soak it in alcohol and just put it between the heads there. Let it sit there for a while so they can soak a bit, and then I turn it a bit and scrub them gently while I apply gentle pressure from above, so both heads. You don't want to misalign the heads because, as I said, it's really painful to realign them. So I think we're good to go. Let's close it up again. So I am just going to add some aluminum tape on the sides here, so it's held together properly again. Okay, nearly as good as new. So, here is how the case turned out, and it's pretty good. There's some very minor, there were these stripes around the edges here, and you can still see very subtle yellowing there. The red marker still visible. I'm not sure if I want to refresh that yet, but it's still visible, so it's still, the legacy lives on, so to say. Yeah, pretty damn nice. So there's no yellowing on the back anymore. This turned out pretty nicely. So let's put the main board back in. So the keys seemingly turned out really nicely. I'm not gonna reach a verdict here until I have them assembled to a keyboard. But they look nice, a lot whiter than before. And the very last key is going to be the up arrow, because we are upcycling this Amiga keyboard. And there we go. And I must say, it looks almost as good as new. The method I tried seems to work very well on the bright keys. I didn't get any marbling or streaking at all. The only thing that I noticed is that the keys in the sections where it was really yellow, probably because of UV light that it got over the years, the darker keys look brighter now, especially in the parts where there was severe yellowing. They look a bit too bright, really. This is the real original color, and these retrobrighted over the original color. Same with these, just on the edges where it was so yellow. They are just a bit too bright. But overall, this looks pretty amazing. So I'm really happy with the results. It seems to be that the plastic degraded so much that it's just I don't know what happened, but I think the UV light it was exposed to during its life before just degraded the plastic to an extent where you can't really get to the original color anymore because it's like faded or something, and this is the color that it has without the yellowing, I guess. So all the other that were in there in my peroxide solution, just the same amount of time, look perfectly fine. The other ones that weren't that yellowed. Totally happy with this. Let's put it back into the case and see how it looks all together. Can't wait. Wow, here we are, and it looks almost as good as new, I'd say. So as for these little rubber standoffs, I'm just gonna use my 3M standard standoffs. They are black. I might get some white ones at some point, but black is good enough for me. They are functional, and I can always remove them and replace them. And they fit perfectly because it's a standard size. So there we go. This is my Amiga 500. I think it is a bit better even than when I got it originally in the early 90s. Lovely. Let's test it. Okay, the disk drive doesn't seem to work anymore. Oh. So here's what happened. This is the little power supply cable for the disk drive. And when I looked at it, I found that 2 of the 4 connections on the plug here had come loose. So when I wiggled it out, they just all came loose. So this was a very bad cable. What I'm going to try is to reconnect it. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to clip this so it's shorter, because we don't really need this long cable in there. This might really have come from an Amiga 2000 or something. Okay, totally works. Okay, now for a proper test run of this machine. Let's see. And it totally seems to work, which is nice, of course. So, this was a success for a change. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you stay tuned for the other parts of this little Christmas series. There's gonna be a part where I check out the peripherals next, I think, and restore them and repair them if necessary. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jan Beta. See you next time.